Alright, so today we got a lot of stuff going on with the coolant system. So today we're gonna clean it out, flush it with some distilled water and some coolant flush. Then we're going to try and seal whatever cracks or warpness going on inside the engine bay. I don't know if it's there or not, but it doesn't hurt to help by using what's called steel seal. Alright, so we're gonna use that, and that stuff's supposed to, seal the head gaskets, seal the cracks or any warpage that's going on in the engine, and then finally we put in our fresh new peak coolant. That's 50/50. Normally you don't have to do this step. You can just put the steel seal in with the coolant that you're about to use, but this steel seal isn't compatible with all coolants. So to be safe, you should just run it in the system with some distilled water and then put in your coolant afterwards, and everything will be fine. Yeah, that's the initial plan. We're also going to be changing some mechanical components, which I'll get to, but it's going to go step 1, step 2, final step 3. Alright, as for the mechanical parts that we'll be changing, we're going to do the thermostat first, because it's easier to do that when there's no fluid in the system. So after I drain the system initially, I'll change the thermostat. Then I'm going to put in my temp sensor, and then there's 2 temperature switches that turn on the auxiliary fan. Those are also easier to put on once there's no fluid in the system. After I change those 4 things, then I'm going to put the flush in, flush out the entire system, clean them up. Then I'm going to put in the new water pump and the new fan clutch, and then continue on with those 3 steps I described earlier. But it's these 6 things, and then our cooling system should be good to go. Alright, so to start, what we're going to do is the drain plug for my coolant. So I'm going to unscrew this, let the coolant drain out. After that's finished draining, these 2 plugs also have to get changed. You can see they're kind of corroded. Fortunately, I did the continuity test and voltage test on it, and it's getting the 12 volts it's supposed to get, but for some reason it's not. The plug itself has no continuity, but the wires are receiving voltage. So after I drain it, get all the fluid out, I'm gonna change these here, and then I'll show you what's under the hood. I'm under the car now, but under the hood I'll show you what I'm changing next. But it's unscrew this, drain that, and then change these 2 plugs for now. So you're supposed to get a new drain plug every time you do this. I completely disregarded that, but it's draining out right there, so we're just gonna let it go. I was doing that. Easy way to help all the coolant come out is you take the radiator cap off, and it not pressurizes, but the pressure above the liquid is going to be higher than it is below, so it's going to force everything out. I believe that's how it works. I took fluid dynamics for 1 semester. But anyway, next, after that's all drained out and I changed those 2 plugs down there, we're going to get better lighting. This piece here is called a thermostat, and that opens and closes based on the temperature of the coolant that's going in. So when the car is up to operating temperature, this thermostat will open and allow the fluid to go into the engine, cool the block down and all these components, and then circulate back into the radiator, and repeat the process over and over. But let that drip out, change this. Change the plugs under, like I said, then change this, and then we start the flush process. Alright, so now begins the flushing process. So I'm going to pour the contents of this bottle into the radiator, and then follow it up with distilled water until it reaches the fill capacity. Then I'm going to run the car with the heat on high for like 10 to 15 minutes so that it can reach the heater core, which I don't think I know where the heater core is. But either way, the heater core is within... Huh? I'm good, you? What? Anyway, the heater core is between here and the dashboard, and it's gonna run that through. So after the initial flush, I have to wait for the coolant in the engine to cool down, because You don't want to operate or touch these liquids while they're hot, because, I mean, except for the transmission and all that, but we're not worried about that. Anyway, I have to wait for the coolant to cool down, which should take around 20-30 minutes. And like I always do whenever I'm building something or fixing something, I like completely gloss over steps that I should have done. I went straight to the flush and did not change the thermostat or the 2 plugs on the bottom that I mentioned. But oh yeah, my thermostat works now, so I'm very happy for that. But I can see that it's reading temperature well, meaning the thermostat possibly isn't even messed up, but it didn't take the right amount of fluid, so I feel like the thermostat may potentially be blocked. So once I do the steel seal, I'm definitely going to change everything now to make sure it works. But temperature did not go past half, which is good. It should stay around a quarter or so. And I ran it for 10 minutes on idle with the auxiliary fan not working, so it didn't overheat. Nowhere near 3/4 mark, nowhere near the half mark. So that's a good sign. But once everything cools down, then I'll make sure to change all these connectors and everything, and we'll be good. So I removed the old thermostat, and I do believe it was blocked because as soon as I unplugged it, it relieved all of its contents on the floor, which I kind of feel like shit now for, because coolant is very bad for cats. We have a lot of cats over here, or just animals in general. So I'm gonna try and like wash it away with some distilled water down the drain. Luckily enough, I parked near a drain. As you can see, this is the old one. Looks like caca pee pee poo poo. And then we have the brand new one. So I'm gonna replace the clamps that go on it, plug it back up, plug those plugs in, and I have to take this fan shroud off to replace all the clutch and stuff like that. Alright, so I took the fan clutch out right here, which came off surprisingly easier than I thought it would. Conventionally it's righty tighty lefty loosey, but for Germans I guess it's righty loosey lefty tighty, whatever the case may be. Took that off. This little ugly looking thing right here is the water pump. That's what I'm trying to take off right now. Already took the fan shroud off. So the next couple of steps is taking that off, putting the new one back on, replacing the clutch fan, putting the thermostat back on. I got one of the plugs on. The other plug they sent me does not fit these connectors, so I have to send it back, get another one. I was gonna replace the belt, which is hanging right here, but I'd have to take off the AC condenser to get the belt to slide, because it's on the second rung of this, which means it has to get past this first rung, which I cannot do without unplugging the AC condenser, which I'm not gonna do. So the belt looks fine for the most part. There's only like $10. Just gonna replace the pump, put the belt back on, tighten up the alternator, and then go through the whole sealant process. All right, so this is the old water pump, which I got out. Looks all cruddy. That looks gross. That's the new one going in. I'm gonna clean up the threads on the screws it came with, and there's 3 over there, and put it back in, and then hopefully we'll be good to go. But that was annoying as hell to take apart, because I had to take off the alternator bracket, so now the alternator's floating there. Whoever like put the hose clamp, I can't even see where this hose clamp is at, bro, but they put it in that direction instead of facing upwards so that I can be serviced from up top, like right here. So I'm gonna scrape all that gunk off, and then put the new water pump in. Alright, so I put the new water pump in, put the new fan clutch in, put the new thermostat in, all shiny parts and shiny clamps. I just put the steel seal inside. I'm gonna follow it up with the distilled water, let it run for 30 minutes, drain it, and then finally put the actual coolant that belongs inside. So after flushing the system, putting in the head gasket sealer and all those things, I drove the car for a little bit, and then I noticed that the coolant was leaking, and I wasn't sure why the coolant was leaking. So I went under the car, Couldn't see any leaks while the car was off. The car was only leaking while it was on. And I was like, maybe the gasket for the water pump broke. So I went and got a new gasket, put a new gasket on, put the water pump back on, and the coolant still leaked from it. So then I was just scouring the internet trying to figure out what the issue was. And then I came across a problem that some water pumps have is when the bearing in the water pump just fails and then the weep hole just leaks out coolant. So that was my issue. So I ended up getting a whole new water pump, another gasket, and putting a brand new setup on it. I probably spent like next to $100 on coolant alone because it's like $20 a bottle, and I went through like 5. But everything's fine now. Just whenever you're about to put a new water pump in your system, make sure the heat is on immediately when you start the car running so it can flow through it. I don't think I had the heat on when I first installed the pump. Therefore, the bearing might have just, went bad immediately. But everything's fine now. And that's the episode.